There's a story unfolding on the Canadian prairies of a quiet revolution that suddenly isn't so quiet. Good, hard-working farmers are breaking the law, or at least that's what the Canadian Wheat Board says. One man is in jail. There may be others to follow. There's a battle being waged in courtrooms across the Canadian plains. Many people ask what's driving these people to such extremes.
What we're trying to do is end the monopoly of our Canadian Wheat Board. We're sick and fed up with the monopoly they've had over the farmers, and especially Western Canada, for 50 years.
Putting us in jail, stop seizing our trucks, let our trucks go, because we're doing nothing wrong with trying to market our own product. That's all we want to do.
A growing number of farmers are beginning to doubt the Wheat Board's ability to extract the highest premiums for their grain. So they're organizing under the banner of Farmers for Justice and fighting for the right to market their own grain.
Dealing with the United States, our friends, our neighbors, and we're put in jail. Where's the honesty? I think we should have the choice to market to the Wheat Board if we so choose.
We want the freedom. We've got a free trade agreement. We just want to exercise in it. It's just an exercise in freedom. This 49th parallel is nothing more than an imaginary line. We've got the same interests as the Americans. We've got a product to sell if they want it, and vice versa.
Canadian farmers like Andy McMecken and Dave Sawatsky demonstrate a magic auger located at the Canada-U.S. border.
That grain's worth $3 a bushel. That grain's worth $8 a bushel.
There's a series of events that will continue to keep the pressure on the government saying, hey, I mean, you are discriminating against the farmers. The farmers do not have the right to sell their grain at this point in time, apparently, where they want to, which is a violation under the Charter. And the farmers need the right, they want the rights, and that is where things are at.
Andy McMecken and Dave Sawatsky believed they weren't breaking any laws when they started selling their grain across the border into the U.S.
We don't want those kind of people around here monkeying with our business. Simple as that. Stay the hell out of our way. It's simple. The RCMP, they know not to stay back. We've got a mission to run here, and we're going to do it. Simple as that.
Did you have the desired effect today?
Sure. Worked good. I couldn't imagine it being so smooth.
That grain was hauled across, there was no law. And when Andy took the barley down, this last deal, when he drove through the customs, he did not break a law because Mr. Goodale had not rewrote that law that day. When he came back, he had absolutely nothing in that tractor. He was smuggling nothing. They came out and harassed him at the border and told him his tractor was seized. He'd done absolutely nothing wrong.
He has the courage to stand up for what he believes is right, and he's standing up for freedom. He's prepared to defy an unjust government monopoly, a law that says the government has the right to do something, but the people don't.
Have you ever been in a jail before?
Not this long. Just overnight over the same issue. I've never been convicted of running a stop sign. Just the system has convicted me of something. They have to just to cover up themselves, their illegalities, corruption in general. They can only do it so long. I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't broken any laws. And if it's not illegal, I know it's not illegal. The law states clearly that I don't have to provide an export license to customs when I export grain. So if that's not illegal, then customs has no right to seize my tractor. So nothing else, none of these other charges exist. It's all created from one charge.
How long do you expect to be in for?
Not more than 2 years old. They decide to start backing their way out of this mess that the system has got themselves into. Then I'm ready and waiting, but not backing out before they're ready to admit guilt.
The Farmers for Justice are kind of a radical fringe that is prepared to do dramatic things and even get criminal records to make their point. And just because you don't agree with the Wheat Board or don't agree with this system of marketing doesn't put you in that camp.
I don't worry too much about the Farmers for Justice because I view them as a fringe group. They're sort of like those free men in Montana.
You know, if they compare us to the freemen, I guess I would compare him to, and the Canadian Wheat Board to someone like Adolf Hitler, total dictatorship. And neither one of them are, you know, justify the label.
If they can convince their neighbors and their other farmers that in fact the Wheat Board adds no value and it's only a hassle and it's exploiting them somehow, I guess the Wheat Board will disappear. But most farmers don't see the Wheat Board that way. They see the Wheat Board as a farmers marketing cooperative, which gives them some market power in the international market, dominated by some very, very big players.
The industry is very complex. And yet it's intuitive at the same time. The concept is simple, you know, farmers banding together and using the collective power in order to have more power in a very cutthroat international marketplace.
They say that the pooling system ensures all will benefit from the marketing expertise of the board's top agents.
I can tell you that this organization has been able to acquire people that are real Wayne Gretzky's of the grain industry to work on behalf and market on behalf of Western Canadian producers. And we just don't have one or two of them. We've got a number of them. We could put a whole team together and we'd be willing to take on the grain marketing team of any organization in the world.
Equality for farmers. That is the founding principle on which the Wheat Board was created. You have 120,000 Western Canadian farmers all living at different distances from port. If they were to compete against one another, it would just be a cutthroat mayhem.
In my judgment, the Canadian Wheat Board was not born, it did not have a legitimate birth. It was a breached birth, as it were. It was, as you know, implemented in a time of war. At the time of its implementation, it was submitted to by prairie farmers largely as a result of patriotism and the emergency and pressures of wartime. In many cases, their neighbors or relatives, in a lot of cases, were going off to war. They were dodging bullets. They were being sunk in the Atlantic. And the federal government comes along and says that as a measure of war, we have to nationalize the grain industry. So the resistance on the prairies to that kind of intrusion on the part of government was not resisted at all. It was embraced by many as a matter of patriotism. And even though farmers knew they were taking less money for their grain at that time, they went along with it. And then after the war, the Canadian government used the instrument of the Canadian Wheat Board to provide Britain with large quantities of wheat at very low prices. And again, there were many farmers who viewed it as an act of patriotism.
When I joined the service, I went freely. I wore Canada on my shoulder, and I wear it proudly. And I fought for freedom. And when I come back, only to find that freedom had been taken away while I was away. And now, it's 50 years later or more, and that is still taken away. It was a War Measures Act to put that in there, and now that War Measures Act is still in place, and that never was taken off, and I think that freedom I lost.
We have to recognize that a monopoly system of marketing like the Canadian Wheat Board has there's a price to be paid. And in the case of the Canadian Wheat Board, vis-a-vis the Canadian farmer, the price that is paid is you lose some independence. For some people, that is a very high price. For others, that is a price they're very, very willing to pay in order to enhance their financial position.
The legislation that we have says we are the sole marketer for Canadian-grown, Western Canadian-grown wheat and barley. So all wheat that is grown on the prairies that is of milling quality, if farmers want the highest price for it, I mean, they could choose to sell it into the feed market if they wanted to. But if they want to sell it, it has to go through the Canadian Wheat Board. We're the marketing arm for the farmers in that sense.
There's a popular belief, I think, amongst some that the Canadian Wheat Board is a farmer marketing agency. The truth, it is not. It is a government marketing agency. It doesn't have farmers on its board of directors. Farmers don't gain access to the information that's there under any circumstances, and farmers are not involved farmers do not participate in the process that defines the boundaries or the barriers of how the Canadian Wheat Board operates.
Why should a farmer not be allowed to export any grain on his own when he can export his cattle, he can export his oil, he can export his fertilizer, and he can export almost anything that a farmer uses for input is free to go back and forth across the 49th parallel, but not wheat, because we got some politicians and bureaucrats that stop it.
In 1935, it started as a monopoly for farmers. In 1943, it became a monopoly over farmers. Hell of a difference, for farmers or over farmers. That's what happened. And they never took it off. They never took that monopoly off because they found out it worked really good. They could literally do anything they want to the farmer, and you can't do a damn thing about it.
That's right. The biggest trouble with these guys is that they're insulated in an office, and they have no outside, no contact with the real world, with what really goes on. They're just, they have so much power, and yet they have no intelligence, and they're not intelligent. They have no common sense. They have no feel for the common people, what goes on in the real world.
How are you guys surviving?
It's been tough.
Some days we wonder.
We're not all rich, I'll tell you that. We owe a hell of a lot of money.
Like, that's not the point, though. Whether you're rich or whether you're poor, whether you make money now when grain prices are good, it's the fact that you are knuckled under. You have, everyone else in this country has the freedom to sell what they produce without any problems to anyone they want. I cannot technically sell you wheat off my farm. Okay? I can't sell wheat to him, I can't sell wheat to a miller, I can't sell wheat to anyone. Once wheat is grown, it is not mine anymore. I have no control over what happens with it.
So you think that a small group of farmers are going to be able to bring down the Canadian Wheat Board?
You just got to learn to cooperate with us, that's all. Cooperate with the farmers. They don't need to bring the wheat board down. Nobody in the Farmers for Justice at any time ever said they want to bring the wheat board down.
Everything that happens in this town is a result of dollars that have been generated out of the dirt by farmers, and the more that farmers can get for their product and look after themselves to create a better lifestyle for them and their families is going to be a benefit to any small town along this U.S. border all across Western Canada.
Well, isn't it just a little odd that you can go just a few miles south of the border here and get $2 a bushel more? Right. You know, and how far are we from the border? That's how the wheat board keeps everybody, it makes everybody equal. Everybody gets half as much as what they should. It's ridiculous to think that just because they have, quote, they use this single desk. Well, I read somewhere, who was minding the single desk when they were selling barley for